I broke up with my girlfriend because she was obsessed with me. A week later, I woke up to her voice, coming from inside my closet. Her name was Emily. We met on Tinder. First date was dinner. I was in my head the whole time, convinced she was judging me, convinced I'd blown it. Then I got home, and she texted me, saying she'd had a great time and really liked me. I was honestly ecstatic. Second, third, fourth dates. We became official pretty fast, and for a while, it was good. Then the texts started coming at all hours. Where are you? Why haven't you answered? She'd call if I took too long to reply. She demanded we share locations. I had nothing to hide, so I agreed. Then she started asking why I was at my friend Phil's house instead of answering her texts about plans she'd made without asking me. One Friday night, when I was in Phil's basement with a couple of friends, she showed up. Phil's mom walked her downstairs. She was furious, almost yelling, in front of my friends, about why I was here instead of confirming a winery trip for tomorrow. I asked if we could talk later. She insisted I leave. I drove home. I sent her a long text. I need space. I need a break. She started calling, over and over. Then she showed up at my front door, pounding, doorbell ringing, not stopping. My neighbor came outside and told her to go home. I stood with my ear to the door, listening to her scream at him that I was a piece of something I won't repeat. She left. I turned off location sharing. She texted me immediately. She'd been watching it that closely. I blocked her on everything. Sent one final message. I have to block you. You're scaring me. Then I blocked that too. 1 week later, I was on my couch, late, looking for something to watch. I'd been at Phil's again. I got home around 11, threw food in the microwave. The microwave beeped and went quiet, and in that silence, a click from the dining room. The door between the dining room and the den. I muted the TV. The door was open. I keep every door in my house shut. That door was open. I grabbed the biggest knife from the block and called 911. I spoke loudly so whoever was there would hear me giving my address, describing the situation. The operator told me to wait outside if I could. I did. Police arrived. We searched everywhere. Every closet, the crawl space, under the beds. Nothing. No one. The officer believed me. I could tell because he told me to call again if I heard anything. And that's not what you say to someone you think is imagining things. I ate my food, took a melatonin, locked my bedroom door, and went to sleep. Something woke me up a few hours later. My phone had lit up with messages from a number I didn't recognize. I read through them. It was Emily, saying she was sorry, that she wanted to talk. Could we please meet tomorrow? Are you awake? Wake up, wake up, wake up. She wrote it 8 times. I typed back, why are you awake right now? This is crazy. Please leave me alone. I pressed send, and from inside my closet, I heard her scream no. The door burst open. I was already moving out of the bed, across the room, door handle, hallway, door shut behind me, holding it. She tried to open it from inside. Then I saw the knife come through the door, just the tip of it. Then more, stabbing through. I said, and I don't know where this came from. Baby, I love you. Stop. She stopped. I called 911 with one hand and held the door with the other. I told her through the door I was going through something, that I loved her, that I'd been planning to come back. She said, and I can still hear this. That's all I wanted to hear. Why couldn't you just be honest with me? She agreed to drop the knife. I heard it hit the wall and clatter to the floor. I yanked the door open and tackled her. I held her down until the police kicked in the front door downstairs and came up. She was arrested that night. She's in prison now on serious charges, and I know how that sounds. Like relief, like an ending. But she was someone I spent real time with. Asterisk someone I thought I might love. And she was in my closet. I still think about the first wrong night, The door that opened by itself, the empty house, the officer telling me to call if anything else happened. She must have been there, somewhere, hiding, and I went to sleep. I took a melatonin, and I went to sleep. The last normal night I remember was the night a man followed me home from a bar, and a few weeks later I woke up to him inside my house. That night, I had been driving home from a bar. 2 drinks in. Nothing crazy. I was being careful, checking my mirrors more than usual, because I'd had a couple, and that's the only reason I noticed it. The same. Headlights. Left turn. Right turn. Another. Right. Still there. I pulled up to a red light and told myself I was being paranoid. People drive the same direction sometimes. It happens. But something didn't feel right, so I texted him, "Are you following me?" His reply came almost immediately. "Yes, just like that. Yes, I just want to make sure you get home okay." I should probably back up a little. Hunter and I had been on 4 dates over about a month. The first was coffee, quick, just a way to feel things out. Then drinks at a bar, then dinner. Another week later, by the 4th date, something about him had started to feel off. I couldn't really explain it. Small things in his behavior that made me uncomfortable. Not enough to accuse him of anything. Just enough to leave a bad feeling in the back of my mind. That last night out, he drank too much. He got handsy. I turned down every advance politely and told him I was tired. He paid the check and we walked out to the parking lot. Outside, he asked if he could come home with me. I said no. He asked again. I said no again. I got in my car, and that's when he started following me. When I realized it, I pulled over and texted him to stop, and he did. He just drove past and disappeared down the road. At the time I thought, okay, that was weird. That was uncomfortable. But it's over. It wasn't over. That night he texted me apologizing. The next morning he texted again. When I didn't respond, he sent a question mark. Eventually I replied, trying to keep things calm. I told him I didn't think we should see each other anymore, that I wanted to focus on myself. That's when the angry messages started. The worst one said, "You strung me along for 4 dates. Pay me back half of everything I spent." There were others too. Personal things, mean things I won't repeat. So I blocked him. A few days later, the no-caller ID calls, STARTED. I ignored them until they stopped. Then one afternoon, I came home from work. My parents weren't home yet, and there were flowers sitting on our front doorstep with a card. An apology and a request for another chance. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Hunter knew where I lived. I found one place where I hadn't blocked him yet and sent one final message. "Don't contact me again. Don't come to my house. If you do, I'm filing a restraining order." Then I blocked him everywhere for a few weeks after that. Nothing happened. I started to believe it was over. Then, one night I woke up to a sound. At first I couldn't tell what it was. I lay there listening, and then I heard it again. A door opening. One of the doors. Downstairs. Nobody was supposed to be home. My parents were out of town. I slowly slid out of bed and dropped to the floor. I crawled under the bed. My hands were shaking as I called 911. Then I texted my entire family, and then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. They stopped outside my bedroom. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought whoever was out there could hear it. The door slowly opened. The room was carpeted, so I couldn't hear footsteps anymore. But then something happened that I'll never forget. The drawer next to my bed started opening. Slowly. One by one, I covered my mouth with my hand to keep from making a sound. Then I heard a man's voice whisper under his breath, "God damn it." And in that moment I realized something that made my blood run cold. The voice sounded like Hunter. He sat down on the bed. Through the bed skirt, I could see the outline of his shoes. He just sat there 2 minutes, maybe 3. Then he stood up, closed the drawers, walked back downstairs. A moment later, I heard the door close. I stayed under the bed for 15 more minutes before calling 911 again. When the police arrived, they searched the house. They eventually found the way he had gotten in, a dining room window. It had been unlocked and there was a thick bush in front of it. that no one had ever really paid attention to it, was just big enough for someone to crawl through. I did get a restraining order, but the case never really went anywhere. There was no proof it was him specifically. That's how these things go, sometimes. Eventually I moved out of my parents' house. I live in a different city now, but even today, sometimes I'll check a window I already know I checked. That's what something like this leaves you with. Not a scar you can point to, just a habit of looking. When I was 11 years old, a boy from my school figured out which window was my bedroom and started throwing rocks at it in the middle of the night. It didn't start that way. It started a few weeks earlier, during Halloween week at school. I had stayed after classes to help decorate for the school carnival. There was pizza, music, friends hanging out. It was honestly a really good time. There was a kid there, I'll call Chris. He was funny. We talked a little. Nothing weird happened, and I didn't think anything of it. 2 weeks later, a group of girls found me between classes. They were smiling like they had the best secret in the world. They told me I had a secret admirer, and that he would be texting me that night. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't curious. I was 11. That night I got a Facebook message from Chris. I had added him around Halloween and completely forgotten about it. He said he needed to talk to me. I asked what was going on, and I wish I had never replied. The typing bubbles stayed there for almost 2 full minutes. When his message finally appeared, it was a long paragraph. He told me he had been thinking about me since Halloween, that he had tried to impress me at recess with his soccer skills, but I never noticed, that he was tired of being ignored. And then he asked, "Will you be my girlfriend?" I stared at the message for a long time. I barely knew this kid, so I tried to let him down as gently as I could. He kept asking why. I kept answering. Eventually he stopped replying, and I thought that was the end of it. The next morning his friends started finding me in the hallways. They told me Chris wanted to kiss me, that he had told the entire grade, and that he would do it even if he had to corner me somewhere. I went to my teacher. She told me to stay inside during recess and lunch. If he came near me, I should run back to the classroom. I went to the principal. He told me he would handle it. Neither of those things stopped what happened next. I lived directly across the street from the school. Everyone knew that. A few days later I walked home like normal. I had been inside the house less than 2 minutes when someone knocked on the front door. I looked through the window and saw someone quickly duck behind a parked car. My mom opened the door and found a note on the front step. It was addressed to me. The note said, "There was a surprise waiting under my brother's car in the driveway." My mom went outside and checked. There was nothing there. But after that day, my brother's car stopped working. We never figured out exactly what Chris did to it. My brother eventually had to sell the car. The messages kept coming. Every morning, "I can't wait to see you today. .org. I bet you'll look beautiful." His friends kept approaching me at school, and one afternoon, while I was walking home, I heard the sound of a camera behind me. I turned around just in time to see Chris lowering his phone. I still don't know how many photos he had taken. Eventually, I got called to the school counselor's office. Walking in, I actually felt relieved. I thought something was finally going to be done about it. Instead, she told me something I'll never forget. She said boys will be boys, that they do crazy things when they're in love. She told me I shouldn't be mad, that I should feel flattered. She said this kind of thing happens, and the best thing I could do was accept it and learn from it. I was 11 years old, and I believed her. When I got home, I told my mom what the counselor had said. My mom was in that office the very next day. She asked them one question: "What are you waiting for? Something bad to happen to her before you do something?" The counselor and the principal stayed completely silent. My mom told the counselor she was never allowed to speak to me again without her present. Chris was never punished by the school, not once. That weekend, my parents were out shopping. I was getting ready to go to sleep when I heard something hit my bedroom window. I live on the 2nd floor. The only thing that ever hits that window is a bird. A few seconds later, it happened again, and again. 3 slow thuds against the glass. I got up and pulled back the curtain, and when I looked down, I saw him. Chris was standing in the dark, below my window holding a handful of rocks. He had figured out exactly which bedroom was mine. He saw me at the window. His mouth started moving like he was talking to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I dropped the curtain and ran to check every lock in the house. 4 messages came in before I blocked him. Why did you leave? I just want to talk. I'm sorry. All I wanted was a kiss. I had to see him every day at school from 6th grade, all the way through senior year. The last thing I heard about him was that he had been arrested. I never found out. For what? And the counselor, I just hope she stopped working with children. Because what she told me that day stayed with me. The idea that someone choosing you without your permission is something you're supposed to be grateful for. I wasn't grateful. I was scared. And those two things are not the same.